Hello YouTube. Now, I don't like this movie. I'm not personally fond of it. But that's not to say it's a bad movie. The reason why I don't like it is because it strays from the original material. Now, if you guys want to know what I'm talking about, I'll put a link in the description to the audiobook and to the movie. Just so then you guys can check it out for yourselves. It's definitely worth it, both of them, because this movie is good. But if you've read the book and seen the movie, then you know how different they are. Or at least in storytelling. And speaking of storytelling, let's go on to the story. Okay, so just a fair warning, lots of spoilers might be in this, because I really cannot talk about this movie and the book. That'll be way too far for me not to do. So, pretty much there will be spoilers. Go check the link in the description below to check out the movie, because the movie is actually a pretty good retelling. But, okay, so, seen the book, or if you've seen the movie, or you've read the book, you may proceed. Now, the story basically is that Jean, who I forgot the last name of, I think it's Foster, goes to this school called Devon, which I assume is an all-boys school, because I never see any girls there, but they never really say. I'll just assume it is. And so pretty much what they do is he just meets a boy named Phineas and some of his friends, and they just pretty much hang out. That's kind of most of the story in a nutshell, but there's way more to it. And here's the part where spoilers come. Jean breaks Phineas' leg. If you guys aren't angry that I spoiled this, then you guys probably just don't care about this movie. So, pretty much he just breaks his leg in this, but that's pretty much where most of the conflict comes from, so that's pretty much where the story sum up ends, because that's really it. That's really all that the story is. And it's like, it's a coming of age movie, I suppose you could say, but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how short this sum up is. But it's executed very well. I'm not gonna say that this movie was great or anything, because it most certainly isn't. Because it's not that great compared to the book, at least, but it's not executed bad. Actually, it's executed pretty fairly. The characters are given time to show and bloom. Heck, there's even the pool scene, which I was shocked at because it was so identical. I mean, really, this pool scene, they are identical. They are pretty much like that. They only missed two things, which is one sentence. Yeah, one sentence from the book. And the fact that it wasn't a clock, it was a stopwatch. That is all that they missed. That is amazing. I have never seen another retelling do that. But then, sadly, there are other scenes that are not like that. Like the falling out of the tree scene. Well, actually, I guess some could argue that the scene itself actually is. But the build-up to it isn't. Why? Because in the book they actually gave time to explain why he would actually do this to Phineas. Jean basically knocked Phineas out of the tree. Well, sort of shook him out, I guess. And Phineas fell down and shattered his leg. But in the book, they actually explain it through inner monologue how Jean felt betrayed by Phineas and built up all his anger into this one cruel action. But what do they do in the movie? It's just one scene trying to build it up. No inner monologue. Nothing. And I guess in some other movies that could be a good way of doing things, like just showing all the emotion into one character's stare, but it doesn't work here. They don't do it right. They didn't execute it right at that moment. So, people who are watching the movie and haven't read the book would give would be completely lost as to why he actually made him fall out of the tree. No one who has not read the book yet seen the movie would know why. They know what's going on, but they won't know why. They have like one conversation that might explain it, but even then, it's pretty short. So yeah, I just had to bring up that there are scenes that are executed very poorly. And my favorite moment in the book, that was at the beginning of chapter 8, yeah, that moment had so much atmosphere and so much passion put into it. All they would do was just give out a moment, just like 2 whole minutes of them being in complete silence after one line was uttered. That's what they would do in the book. Yeah, what are they doing in the movie? It's just an instant response. How the heck did they do that? Why did they do that? But maybe I'm harshing on it a little bit too much. I mean, there are scenes that are very close to being identical. But to me, that's what makes it even worse. And the scenes that are almost identical aren't big scenes. They're not scenes that are completely necessary to the story. So, when they're completely identical like that, it doesn't make any sense later because they made those scenes identical, yet they made other scenes not identical in the least. And those scenes are big, important scenes. So they kind of got confused as to which scenes are important and which scenes aren't. And there are some scenes in this, though, that are decent to the book. Like, they do spend enough time with it to get the idea across, and that's good. They actually do spend time with that. But when they ignore the stuff that is huge in the book and in this movie that should be addressed, and just say, it just what happens, then it doesn't work. Because if you haven't read the book, or haven't listened to the book on audio, then you won't know why they did this. So for the story, I am actually going to give it a 7 out of 10. Because, again, it is not executed bad. They actually did do a decent job with the amount of time that they were given. But it just didn't work right. Some of the pacings were spent on scenes that weren't that important, yet some of the other pacings were spent on scenes that were important, yet were skipped over way too fast. So again, 7 out of 10 on the story. And now we go on to the characters. And just so you know, I do not know how to pronounce one of these characters' names. Okay, now, with my big outburst on the story, you guys might be wondering, well, then I probably don't like the characters. Actually, no, I don't. I really enjoy these characters. In fact, this is what made the book such a good book to me. I really related with one of the characters, so it seemed like I really could put myself in the situation. And surprisingly, this movie's no different. I can actually put myself in the situation because they actually follow with these characters. Sure, I expected Gene to have a little bit of a different voice. Really, why does he have a country accent? Why did they have that? I don't get that. That was never shown in the book. I don't get that. Where did that come from? But really, you kind of look past that because the characters are surprisingly well developed and do take a lot of time. Like the character Gene. He's more of a stressful, safe, down to the rules type of character who, yeah, okay, I can relate to. But he's actually executed wonderfully here. It does really feel like I'm seeing the character I've read about. So it does seem very true and feels very much like the book. So most of the good feelings that I got from the book is very well executed with this character. And then there's Finney, who actually, again, just like Gene, he's pretty much the exact same. I do find this character very likable, and I do feel sad for him at the very end. But there's one thing I would like to say about it, is that in the book, I always pictured them more as kids. Because the stuff that they're doing seemed more like kid stuff. Like there were scenes where they would just run around, just play ball. I guess that teenagers do that, but they sort of made up the game. So I always sort of pictured them in the place of teenagers, of like going into teenagehood. Yet in the book they're actually 16, and in the movie they're 16 as well. So then the story would sort of feel like we're progressing as the characters got older. And sadly, the movie really made me think about that differently. Because I didn't really get it. It didn't really feel like the characters were actually how I thought they were. And some might argue that'd be a problem. And which, yeah, it kinda is, but they didn't do a bad job with it, or at least with what they were given, they didn't. And actually, I quite enjoyed seeing it. Because it really did make me think about the book in a very different way. So, yeah, I'm glad that they did it like that. And then there's Blinker? I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry, I really don't. It's the character whose name starts with a B. I'm just gonna call him B right now, because I have no idea how to pronounce his name right. Like, for some odd reason, I always forget his name, and I cannot pronounce it right whenever I remember it. So, I'm just gonna call him B. Now, in the book, I actually pictured him much more as like a jock character and kind of a bully turned friend. Yet in the movie, he's more of a nerdy guy who mainly wants to get good grades and can sometimes be a jerk. I never got that, so I never really feel like I'm watching this character. Sure, the acting choice was good, and if it was for a different character in the book, I'm pretty sure I would have been fine with it. But it just doesn't feel like this one character that I knew. The character was a little bit more tough and could take a punch in the book. Yet here, he's far from that. So it seems like they've taken away a lot of his tough, no-nonsense personality, which sort of made me see him like more as a bully turned friend, who can still be a jerk at times. And the one person that he's mainly a jerk to is the next character, which is Leper, who is more of a peacekeeper, at least for the most part. If you've read the book or seen the movie, then you know exactly what I mean by for the most part. But pretty much he starts off as a character that's more of a peacekeeper and kind of more friendly and outgoing. But then what happens in is he's the first one to enlist in war. Okay. And after that, he's actually sort of like a man who's seen war and knows how it's horrifying. He actually gives Jean an entirely different outlook on war. Where Jean would sort of look at it as like, I don't really want to go into it. Now, after conversations with Leper, he's a little bit more serious about it and knows that's something that shouldn't be joked about. So they actually do convey that very well. And sure, they might change some of the language to be a little bit more adult, but yeah, I think they did pretty well. Especially with what they had. Like, again, scenes that are identical. The scene with Jean and Leper talking after Leper came out of war. That scene is almost identical. They just changed around some words. So that's pretty much all for the characters. Yeah, there aren't that many in this. But, even though there aren't that many, they do have enough time to develop them, and spend a lot of time with them. And actually get you feeling sorry for these characters if something bad happens to them. Like, I actually did feel bad for Leper. And I'm glad that I was able to see it. So, for the and also, Jean, I don't care about his accent. It might have been annoying, but I don't care. It was still a great performance. So for the characters, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because the characters are executed wonderfully. and they're very similar to the book. Yeah, this is an adaptation that's actually similar to the book. Who would have thought that people could still do that? Now, how do I feel about the film in a whole? Well, it definitely has its inaccuracies, but I don't think that. But I think that if you've never read the book, then you can actually really enjoy this movie. Because if you've never read the book, go check it out. Though it's a great book, it's definitely worth a watch and listen. And as is this movie. It's not a bad movie, it's executed well, and it actually does give a little bit more of an understanding of the book, as some things I felt were kind of rushed in the book. This movie made it a little bit more paced out. But there are some points in it that I really do find problems with. Like, my favorite part of the book is completely glanced over, just like, oh, they're not on the list? No, oh, okay, that's pretty much it. That's what my favorite scene was, and what they do? Nope, okay. I guess I'm not doing this. Oh, fine, that's cool. And that's not really how I think it should have been, but all in all, the movie's definitely fun and worth a watch. So if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's definitely worth the time. And next week I'm going. Final review. Thank you. 7 out of 10 for being such a good retelling of the book. But if they wanted to make it a little bit more appealing to the fans of the book, here's what I think they should have done. And this is what I'm surprised that they didn't do, since Showtime TV is involved with this. They should have made it a mini-series. You wanna know why? It wouldn't have cost that much more money. They actually did get most of the stuff down, so it wouldn't have cost that much more money at all. Because all they would have been doing was using the same sets as Devon, and that's pretty much it. But they didn't do that. If they wanted to be more appealing to fans, which I don't know what they want to do, then they would have made a mini-series. And that's what I think what they should have done, but it's not my place to decide what these filmmakers made. I mean, they did good with what they had. And, frankly, that's exactly what it is. It's just a fun little movie to just check out if you really want to. And next week is The Matrix. I'm the reviewer, and bye.